Hello, friends, and welcome to the Activity Continues podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Megan.
And I'm Amy.
We discuss episodes of the TV channels. Okay. We're 2 sentences in, Amy.
It's okay.
We discuss episodes of the Travel Channel's TV show, The Dead Files.
This week, we're mixing it up a little bit. Megan will recap for you the Ax Murder House, which is Season 3, Episode 5 on Discovery, but Season 3, Episode 4 on Hulu, and is off because Discovery Plus has a Q&A special at the beginning of that season, so it shoves everything down one. It originally aired on November 29th, 2013.
And Amy will be doing some color commentary because she's done some research on the crime, watched some TV shows, listened to some podcasts, basically has found every media you can, exercised it, and she will add some of her own extras.
Yep. So stick around to the end, too, because we have a special surprise for you. A friend of the show, Heather, who's also a patron, sent us a paranormal story to share with you.
Okay, well, that's news to me because if Amy told me about it, I forgot. So I'm just hearing about it for the first time mentally. She probably told me like 4 times in our text.
Well, maybe not. But I mean, I didn't mean to keep it a secret, but sometimes things get away from me.
And I am doing this episode because our other patron, one of our other patrons, Amy, had told me we should cover this episode, the Ax Murder House. And so that's why I picked it, because Amy was like, you should totes do it. I mean, I'm paraphrasing because I don't think I've ever heard Amy say the word totes in my life. No. But that's why I picked this one. So shout out to Amy for suggesting it. Because this was, you guys, this
doozy.
This has a big content warning here. We've got brutal death, child murder. So just a really quick content warning. If you are not okay with those things, totally understand.
Yep.
But then just don't listen to this one because 6 kids get killed.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to try. I don't have in mind. I mean, I had a lot of gruesome stuff, but I don't have to say it. I can cut it. But, we can gloss over some of it without being too terribly gruesome, although there's one kind of gruesome thing I want to point out. But yeah, so it's funny that Amy, patron, suggested this, and Heather, patron, told me, I got to send you my paranormal story sometime. And I was like, oh, that'd be great. She goes, it's about the Villisca Ax Murder House. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me?
Okay, now it's ringing some bells. Yeah,
I'm like, can you send it by Sunday?
Yes.
And she whipped it together and she sent us something with a whole bunch of pictures. And
oh my God.
I shared
Heather.
I know, she's awesome. I shared with you the drive where I put all the pictures. So the Google Drive, you should be able to go there and look at the pictures once we get to that part, but that'll be at the end. And then I'm going to post all those pictures on our blog and probably on Patreon too. I don't think I can post. There's so many. I can't post them all like on Instagram unless I do like 10 different posts.
Yeah, but that's kind of a lot.
Yeah, but I think I'll just put them on the blog and everybody who's interested can go over there and see.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Yeah. Okay, so some things we wanted to talk about today.
Give them something to talk about.
Oh, first of all, I need to open my beverage. What are you having?
What do you think I'm having?
Do you have any Rebel?
I have one left.
Oh.
My last one.
I am having the cafe agave that either you or Amy left at the house.
Is it the rum chat, the cinnamon one?
Yeah, it's a cinnamon one.
That's me.
Okay.
Amy did, I think, just the espresso.
She bought the regular one?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm having the rum chata one. That's not the flavor.
That's what I call it.
It's called vanilla cinnamon.
It tastes like rum chata.
Yeah. I like this one.
Yeah, I didn't. So yay for you.
And then I have a backup White Claw.
Basically, Amy is my friend now because I buy alcohol I don't like and then bring it to her.
That's the only reason.
That's it right there.
That's it.
9 years of friendship. Well, not 9, probably 7 years of friendship. Because I think I started at SIG in 2015.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was funny. Amy and I went out for, not you, Amy, patron Amy. And I went out for a beer on Friday we went to Bent Brewstillery here in
fun.
St. Paul. Yeah, it's one of my favorites. I like it there. And we were talking and she was like, I was like, did you have fun with Amy and Greg? And she was like, yeah, I felt like I was outstaying my welcome. And they don't believe in that.
I told her there's no such thing as that.
She's like, sometimes I overstay my welcome. And I'm like, they don't know what that means.
No.
I'm like, you could stay the night there. And they'd be like, okay, what do you want for breakfast? Like,
absolutely.
Yeah. So
that's our jam. That's how we work. So yeah, she texted me later and she's like, I had a really good time. I just hope I didn't overstay my welcome. I'm like, it's not possible.
That's fine. What I told her.
We had a great time.
I was like, when I got there, I told Amy I might be sleeping on your couch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, that's just the way it is at Amy and Greg's.
Yep. I mean, when you have a bar in your basement, that's kind of one of the rules. You just have to let people stay.
Yeah. So yeah, it was really fun. Yeah, so she had a really good time in that. She's like, we need to do that more. I'm like, obviously. We need to do that every single week.
That'd be fine.
So Dom from Shit and Bricks talked about us on their latest episode 23. Guys, when I say that was a high that carried me through the week, I got goosebumps.
Yeah.
And he was so cute because he was talking about they're from North America, Canada or Minnesota. And I'm like, Dom, they're basically the same thing.
They're basically the same thing. Yeah.
I love them so much.
Yeah. They're great. They're super great. I know. I listened to it early in the morning. I was laying in bed. I know. Like,
I know. You texted me and I listened to it and I was like, so if you haven't checked out Shit and Bricks, you have to go listen because they remind me a lot of Amy and me. Yeah. They've got really fun banter. Kate, she is a hoot and holler. I tell you what, she is so funny.
Yep.
Oh, I love them both. Yeah, I love them both. And they were talking about, us taking them out for a drink. And I'm like, I will fly to Australia to take you guys out.
Oh, can you imagine how much fun? We'd have to bring the cream wine.
The grape wine, you mean?
Yeah.
Grape wine with cream.
Grape cream wine. Yeah.
You know what? How do they deal with the spiders? Like that's what I want to know.
They have a lot of bugs and animals that I don't want to be anywhere near.
I'm mostly concerned with the spiders. Is my biggest fear. Yeah. So Dom and Kate, if you listen, how do you deal with the spiders?
Yes, we'd like to know.
Please. So yeah, thank you so much to Dom for doing that. And if you guys haven't, please go check out Shit and Bricks because they are hysterical.
Super fun.
I love them.
Yep.
They're part of my weekly routine now. So.
Yeah. They're awesome. Okay. So speaking of Dom, he started a podcast network sort of for us to, how we're trading promos with them.
Yeah.
And so he started something through Instagram with other like-minded podcasts.
What?
So we can all kind of share each other's promos and stuff and help support each other.
Yeah.
And he invited us to be part of it. And I just thought that was so great. It's so nice to have people around you who are doing the same thing as you and who are supportive as opposed to being rival.
Competitive.
Yeah. And it's so nice.
Like there's enough room in the pool for all of us, you guys.
Exactly. There's plenty of people who listen to our exact same kind of podcast, but might love Dom and Kate and not like us. Or, it's so there's
it wouldn't be vice versa because I can't imagine anybody not liking Dom and Kate.
Right.
But
But yeah, there's really no reason to just not support each other. And so I think it's so great that we're doing that.
Yes. And then there's just welcoming.
Yes. So refreshing. And then I also joined another podcast networking group called Uncanny Valley. And they have a Discord, on Discord. And so it's
what's that?
Oh, it's a platform where people can talk. It's mostly meant for gamers. So people can chat and see each other and talk and play games together.
Not to brag, but I'm a hardcore Sims gamer. So
I'm sure there is a place for you on Discord.
Yes. If anybody plays Sims, we'll talk about it.
Yeah. I used to, but I only played it.
I know. Yeah.
I played it on my computer, but all my Sims were too stupid and they kept burning the house down or shitting their pants. And so
you have to tell them to go to the bathroom.
I know. And I do, but then they have to get to work because they're late because they wouldn't fucking get up when I told them to get up.
Well, yeah, you have to plan ahead. It's rough. You gotta, but once you figure it out, it's like when I first got Sims, I think I started on Sims 3, and I literally would wake up, play Sims until I had to go to work, come home and play Sims until like midnight.
Oh my God.
I mean, it was like 10 hours easily. I'd sit there, play Sims.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I had a problem.
I get.
And then you'd get all the points and you'd do like your fertility treatment. So then you'd woohoo and have twins and triplets. And
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I didn't get that advantage.
One of my Sims I named just in case.
Nice.
Justin, first name, last name, Case. God,
Right.
I'm so funny.
Right. You are so clever.
I know. It's tip of the iceberg.
So anyway, that's what Discord, I think, was made for, is sort of that. So this network is just a bunch of podcasters that are similar to us that are just sharing, like mostly just chit-chatting right now.
Mm-hmm.
But, we'll be sharing ideas and maybe sharing promos and things like that.
Nice.
Too. So,
Yeah.
it's fun. So what the other things I wanted to mention is, we should talk a little about the finale, the Dead Files finale.
We should.
I don't know if I want to give away anything, but
No.
But that was good.
It was good.
I really enjoyed it.
I felt so bad for Amy because I bet she was just drained.
Yeah.
Because it seemed like it was the
She
same
didn't seem like it,
spirits.
though. She's a trooper, man.
Yeah. It seems like it was the same spirits throughout the town.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot surrounding the Orpheum and the crystal.
Crystal store.
When the girl showed Steve the picture of the journals on the floor, I got goosebumps.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine? Oh, and then they had a video in one of the businesses. I think it was like a restaurant bar of one of the bottles falling off the top shelf.
Yeah,
the top shelf.
And it didn't just fall. It
flew. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it didn't like slowly.
It was like it was pushed from behind.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep.
And you guys, it was top shelf. Like there's no way somebody walked by and bumped it, and nobody was walking by anyway.
No.
But yeah.
Yeah, that was trippy.
Freaky.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was good. And I liked how they did the reveal at the end too. That was really good.
In the auditorium, and everybody got to come up and talk to her. And I liked how they took into account, like they talked about altitude sickness and how some of these things could have been altitude sickness
for the tourists.
Yeah. People that live there, not necessarily. But so they did tests where it was really cool. They did a lot of extra stuff that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah. And I didn't realize altitude sickness could do that.
Yeah, I didn't either.
They were hallucinating.
Yep.
They were losing like their coordination.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the tests they did was they had a group of like 5 or 6 bodies, and like 2 or 3 of them were mannequins and the rest were humans.
Mm-hmm.
And at one of them was 22,000 feet, which Flagstaff, they said, was around 7,000 feet above sea level.
Mm-hmm.
But around 22,000, they couldn't differentiate between the humans and the mannequins.
It's so weird.
Every single person got it wrong.
That was so trippy to me.
I know.
Yeah.
And like it's not like the mannequins had the same skin color. Like they were black mannequins they all were wearing black hooded sweatshirts.
Yep.
And the people, their face, they were humans.
Mm-hmm.
But that was so trippy to me. Yeah. I had no idea that altitude sickness could do that to you.
Yeah. I didn't.
It just gave you headaches and made you nauseous.
Yep. I did too. Yeah. So if we ever, Colorado has, it's pretty high altitude in Colorado, isn't it?
I know. I would love to go to Colorado.
I would too.
Everybody knows why. So I could go to Colorado Springs, meet Lieutenant Joe Kenda, and become best friends.
Oh, yes. That's the dream, isn't it?
Yes. John and I were going to go there for a honeymoon, but, we never did. Then I got knocked up in COVID. I mean, in fairness, it was a planned pregnancy, but still.
Right.
Interfered with Joe Kenda.
Oh, my God.
Thanks, baby.
Okay, what else do we have to do?
We have new reviews.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Amy and Heather, for the new reviews. You guys, they did it. They were so in depth, and it wasn't just like great podcast, which we will take.
We'll absolutely take that.
They were so in-depth with their reviews. So thank you so much for taking those few minutes to do that. It really, really brightens our day. It makes our whole day.
Yep, it certainly does.
Thank you for doing that. We really appreciate it.
Well, anyway, I wanted to let everybody know that I just finished the video episode for episode 12, the last one. It's not just a video like I've been doing, which is just an audio with a logo on it. It's our Zoom. So it took me a few days to edit it. And then I put that up today for patrons. And I'll probably make it live for public in a few days, maybe even by the time this is out. But I wanted the patrons to have something, because I know I'm not going to get this episode out to them early this time because we're recording on a Monday. Yeah, we usually record on Thursday. And then and you know, what's funny is that the reason we decided to do it this way, or the reason I wanted to do it this way, is that I didn't feel like I had time to watch an episode of The Dead Files and to write a recap for it. So I said, I'll just talk about the murder, the Ax murder. Well, 5 podcasts, 4 TV shows, and a movie later. Yeah, it was too much. It was a lot. So,
and I just procrastinated. So,
and then we were supposed to record last night, and we were both like, I don't feel like doing it.
I know. I was like, I had no motivation. I don't even know if I showered yesterday. I'm going to be completely honest with you.
I didn't.
There's a strong chance. You know what I did? Because I hadn't showered since Friday. So,
okay.
Yeah. TMI, everybody.
I did not. I rolled out of bed and I went, I hate myself. And
Amy had a little too much fun Saturday.
My Saturday was a little too much fun. Yeah, I could say that. I was non-functional yesterday.
Was it Greg the bartender?
Partly, yeah.
Oh, Greg.
Yeah,
Gregory.
Yeah, partly. I mean, I didn't have to ask him to make me another drink, so it's my fault.
Quick sidebar. Of course, the governor is garbage. She's a governor. What is it? Alabama. Of course she is.
Yeah. So I had put this in the notes that Kay Ivey, the burping governor that we talked about last week, she's not great. So she recently signed 2 bills that are related to transgender issues. And one of them is to outlaw transgender youth's access to gender affirming medications. It makes it a felony to prescribe puberty blockers or hormones to trans youths under 18, they're adults. So if you're 18,
join the army.
You can't, you can fight for the country, but you can't get the medications.
Why? Who cares what they're doing? If that's what they want to do, if that's how they identify, literally has no bearing on anybody else.
You. Yep.
So leave them be.
Here's a quote from her. I believe very strongly that if the good Lord made you a boy, you're a boy. And if he made you a girl, you're a girl.
So are we just forgetting separation of church and state then?
Yeah,
I mean, is that just out the window?
Yeah, apparently so.
Sure.
You could just bring up God or Jesus whenever you want to. When you're talking about laws.
Who cares?
We're in The Handmaid's Tale. I'm telling you, we're almost there.
Let people be who they are.
Yep. I agree.
It has no bearing on your life.
Right.
A youth using a female bathroom, nothing to do with you.
Yep.
And for the people who are like, they're going to be turned on or they're going to molest our kids. No, they're not.
No, they're not.
Oh, people, it's maddening. I'm angry.
It's maddening.
Oh, people are the worst.
Do.
So
all right, you want to get started?
Yep.
Okay.
So this one, you guys, this was rough. It wasn't rough because of the stuff happening, but the history for me was this was a brutal, brutal murder.
And did you know much about this before you watched this?
No.
I didn't either. I knew of it. I knew that whole family was axe murdered, but I didn't know the details.
And I didn't know it was solved, but that's about it. But you guys, the reveal, Amy met one of the killers.
Yep.
She saw. Oh, okay. We're getting ahead of ourselves. All right. So Steve gives a brief history of the murders when we start. And essentially what happened, is it okay if I talk about this?
Yes. Yeah.
So it was the Moore family. So it was, was it Jeff and Sarah?
Josiah
and Sarah Moore, who was his wife. They had 4 kids. And then 2 girls were visiting that night, the Stillinger girls, Ina and Lena. Ina and Lena were visiting. And they were all murdered with an axe. However, the only person who was killed with the blade of the axe was Sarah. Everybody else.
Actually, I think the guy in the episode was wrong.
Really?
Because every other thing I read or saw or listened to said that it was Josiah that got the blade end of the axe. Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, there's one person in the murders who got killed with the blade of the axe. Everybody else had the back of it. So, yeah, it was not great. It was not great.
Yeah.
So then we're meeting with John, and John gives tours in the Villisca Ax Murder House, and then he lives next door. And next door was the home of Mary. Oh my God, I wrote her name down.
It's Pickham.
Pickham. Yeah, Mary Pickham. So she's the one who discovered the bodies, and he lives in her house. So I'm not going to say too much, but he drove me bananas.
I've got some stuff about him too.
He became obsessed with this case because he wanted to try and solve it. He basically felt like he was called to the house to try to solve these murders. And he called Steve and Amy in because he thinks that something from the house has followed him home. So when he goes home, he hears doors opening and closing. He feels back aches, neck aches, rattling, scratching noises. And really what happened was he was experiencing these things first at the Ax Murder House, and then they came home and he started experiencing this. Not only he is, but also his wife and his children are experiencing it. And so everybody's scared, and, he just wants his home to be safe, which understandable, but anyways. So then we're in the Ax Murder House, and we're in the guest bedroom. And this is where Ina and Lena were found. Those were the 2 girls who were overnight guests. So John says in this room, he has lots of nausea. Your neck will hurt, your back will hurt. And then as soon as you walk outside, it's instantly gone. And then he's heard a lot of growling in this room. He says it's not an animal sound. And he said he'll hear a growl, a gasp, and a moan, all in that order. Mm-hmm. And he said the growl doesn't sound human, but the gasp and the moan sounded feminine. Then Steve pointed out, well, do you think that you think it's feminine because the 2 people in this room were feminine, like we're girls, which I think might have been. I think he might be swayed a little bit by it.
Sure.
Not saying that it's not happening, but I think even if it's subconsciously or unconsciously, he could be swayed by this because it's such a predominant case.
Well, it's the same reason that they have to cover up everything for when Amy goes through.
It's unconscious bias. Yeah. You don't want that to happen. So like I said, he lives in the house of the woman who found the bodies. He'll hear voices saying his name. He said one day he was home, his kids had gone to school, and his wife had left for work, and he heard his wife's voice saying, John. He looked around and looked out the window, and he saw his wife's car driving away. And so, oof.
Was not her.
Nope. So here is where John kind of started to irk me the wrong way. He was kind of giving me some Zach Baggins vibes here. So he said he had latched the door shut, latched it shut. He said out loud, if anyone's here, Mary Peckham, if you're here, open this door now. And then it slammed open and nobody else was home. So you're talking to the ghosts, you're asking them to do things, and then you're getting freaked out when they listen to you. Don't do that, you guys. Like, you have to respect them. These people, we'll get into it. Anyways, so then after that, he padlocked the door shut to prevent it from opening, even though he's the one that asked it to open. So he also had some friends over. They stayed the night in that room. He said one friend had come down the next morning and said he'd woken up with a distorted woman's face above his and was terrified. And he said he won't sleep in there again, which I don't blame him again. He said that his daughter has seen this woman as well, and she's talked about Hattie, who's a woman upstairs. And he calls her Hattie, and he said, how do you talk about, a ghost to a 4-year-old, which fair point. Like, you don't want to scare them.
Yeah.
And then Steve said, what if Amy says you need to move? And John said, it's not that easy, which bullshit. I mean, I get that it's not that easy, but he doesn't want to move because he feels called to this house.
This is not a case of this guy who bought this house, put out his whole life savings into it, and can't afford to move. That's not what's going on.
That's not what this is a case of a man who, despite everything, no matter what Amy says, is going to stay there because he's called. Then we've got Martha Lynn, who's the owner. So she bought the house in 1994 with her husband, Darwin, which, by the way, love that name. That made me so happy. So she bought the house because of the historical value it had, which I get it. Like it's a big deal. Like that's a huge case. That's got to be the majority of the history for this town.
Yeah.
The Villisca, Iowa. Steve asks if she thinks the paranormal groups are stirring up things regarding the activity. And she said the paranormal groups claim that the activity started when she and Darwin restored the home to what it originally looked like, which that could happen, you guys.
Yeah. And you know what they did? They took out the electricity.
Oh.
They took out the electricity and they restored the house so that it looked exactly like it did before. They put the beds where they were. They put, they redid everything to look exactly like it was.
So they're basically inviting these people to haunt them. And so Steve asks her, are you worried about the guests and the staff and what's happening? She said, no. No, I'm not.
I thought that was funny too.
Yeah. I was like, no. Okay, Martha. No. Sure. And again, Steve asks her, what if Amy said, you should stop doing the tours? She said, I'll listen to what you have to say. I'll take it to heart, but I will not discontinue what I'm doing. Okay, great. So just totally disregarding Amy's advice and what the dead.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, she's not the one that called them.
Yeah.
It was Johnny who called them.
It was, but she also
she agreed,
she put the rooms back to, traumatic event.
Yeah.
So then we talked to Christy. She's another tour guide. And they're upstairs, and I think it's the guest bedroom. And she is really upset. She's really on edge. You can just see she is uncomfortable.
Yep.
And Steve is like, you don't look like you want to be here. She said, no, I don't like being upstairs. She said she's had many experiences upstairs. She said she was doing a tour and she heard footsteps coming up the stairs behind her. She was the last person up the stairs, nobody else behind her. She didn't handle it well. She ran into the next room screaming. And one of the guests on the tour followed her in and said he'd heard the footsteps too. To be fair, though, I probably would have reacted close to the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just picture her. I'm sure this is not what happened, but just hands in the air, running like a cartoon.
Yeah.
That's probably not what happened. But
probably not exactly.
She's had her hair ruffled, and she said she's been touched inappropriately and did not elaborate on what that was. So whatever it is, not great. And she does think whatever's in the house is dangerous, which, again, I know we've talked about this in the past. Just because, if you're afraid, you're going to think it's dangerous. Doesn't mean it is. But if you're, it's all that, thing. So then we meet with Dr. Edgar Epperly, and he is the Villisca murder historian. So talking about, the victims. So we have Josiah and Sarah Moore. And like I said, they're 4 kids and the 2 girls. So the night of the murders, they all went to a church service where there was a visiting Reverend George Kelly, who is actually one of the suspects. there's a rumor that one of the kids thought they saw someone in the bushes on the way home. But I don't know how they would have picked that rumor up because they were murdered that night, and who would they have heard that from? So I don't put a lot of stock in that.
Yeah.
So come the next morning, we're in Mary Peckham's house, and she noticed there wasn't any activity. So she shouted, knocking on the door. She got no response. So Mary Peckham called Josiah's brother, and they went into the house to kind of, figure out what's going on. They saw two figures on the bed in the back wall, and there was blood on the wall. The killer had taken a woman's black skirt out of the dresser and had draped it over the mirror. The axe was leaning against the south wall, and it had blood and hair on it. So here is where they say Mrs. Moore was the only one who was struck with the blade of the axe. Everyone else was killed with the back of it. But you're saying it was Josiah.
Yeah. Everything else I saw said that it was Josiah that got the blade end.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where it gets gross. So fast forward 5 seconds if you don't want to hear this. He was so damaged that his eyes were missing.
They said that about everybody.
Oh, really?
They said that everybody was so disfigured that it was hard to identify any of them.
Yeah.
Here's one thing that's very interesting to me that I had not known. He said that the faces had all been covered with pieces of clothing and the covers pulled over them. So that to me says that this person knew the family and were either remorseful or they didn't want to look at what they had done. So that was very key, and that was very interesting to me. And so that made me kind of question, why George Kelly was one of the 4 suspects and the only one tried. He was visiting.
Yeah, he didn't know them.
To the city. He didn't know them. And so that to me was interesting. Next to the body, and this gets really gross, you guys, was a 4-pound slab of bacon just on the ground. First of all, that's a lot of fucking bacon.
That is a lot of fucking bacon.
You bastards. And
that's a waste of good food.
Oh, you're telling me. And one of the theory, and this is so gross, I can't even believe I have to say this, was that the killer had rolled it into a tube and used it to sexually gratify himself.
Yep. I'd also heard there was a dish towel nearby too, like with the bacon.
Okay.
Kind of make me not want bacon anymore.
No, it doesn't do that for me. Not gonna lie.
I mean, that's going a little far.
Yeah, Amy, let's rein it in a bit. Rein it in.
Oh, hi there. This is Kate.
And I'm Dominic. And we are your hosts of Shitting Bricks, the podcast.
Every week, we'll bring you an episode of what makes people shit bricks. Is it a fear of death? Deep water? Running out of wine? Cannibalism? We take a warped look at these topics using examples from history that are the epitome of some scary shit.
You can find us on all the regular podcast streaming services like Apple, Spotify, and Google. For exclusive content including behind-the-scenes nuggets, links to weekly topics, and maybe even merch in the future, head to Shitting Bricks Podcast on Instagram and YouTube. But for now, drop your dacks, pop a squat, and let's get into it.
Are you interested in stories of ghosts, poltergeists, and the paranormal? Do you love an amazing tale of an unsolved mystery, a strange disappearance? How about a UFO encounter, or even a first-hand sighting of a creature that should only exist in your nightmares? Why not join us over at the Haunted UK podcast, where every 2 weeks we delve deep into the tales of the strange and unusual, the unsolved and the downright weird. The Haunted UK podcast is available on all major platforms, as well as being on Instagram and Coffee. So why not give us a follow and get involved with the show? Thanks for listening, and we really hope that you'll join us for our next episode. And on that note, it's back to the show.
So let's stop there, because that's all I have for the
For the murder part?
For the murder part, yeah. So what did you
So
find?
what do I have? I have, okay, so I don't know.
I don't know.
Tell me.
You tell me, Amy.
Okay, so I have Mary Peckham noticed her neighbors were quiet. Usually they're up doing chores and shit. She went over there, let their chickens out, and knocked on their door. No answer. So she called Josiah's brother, Ross.
That was nice of her to let the chickens out.
I know.
They need to eat.
That's right. And so then Ross had a key.
Mm.
And that is sort of key, if you will, because...
See what you did there.
Because...
Does it unlock some questions?
Not really. It's just interesting because the doors were locked. So whoever was in the house got out somehow without
obviously they left
going out the front door.
Yeah.
Or they had a car.
Or they locked it. I wonder what kind of lock it was. Like, was it just the handle, the tourney lock, or was it a bolt?
I have no idea.
Because that would be interesting.
Yeah. My guess is whoever was in the house when the murders happened who wasn't dead left out a window. But I don't know. Anyway, he opened the door and he found the two visiting sisters dead in the guest bedroom because the guest bedroom was on the main floor and all the other bedrooms were upstairs.
Okay.
So he didn't go any further. He backed out, went to the porch where Mary was waiting. Mary never went into the house.
Good.
And then she called the city marshal.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a fun fact. The Stillinger girls' parents were also named Joe and Sarah. Because
really?
Josiah was called Joe sometimes.
Yep.
Yeah, they were also called Joe and Sarah. Also, the papers originally reported that the visiting girls were Blanche, who's 18, and Edith, who's 20. Spillinger. So they spelled their name wrong.
And they got
their ages wrong. I don't even know if Blanche and Edith are real people. I assume they are. So as soon as the police were called, do you have anything about this or should I keep going about the crime scene?
I have. So we talked to County Sheriff Sampson and he did say that the crime scene was just destroyed.
Yeah.
He said people went through it, super tainted. But I mean, it was 1912. Yeah. They didn't know about DNA and evidence.
Well, they couldn't have done anything about that anyway. I think they did have fingerprints though. But yeah, as soon as the police were called, people started showing up at the house. Mm-hmm. And I put in my notes, it went from 0 to fucked up, like you said last week. Half the town came into the house and were looky-looing all over the place. Peeking at the dead bodies. Why would you want to
do that?
While the bodies were still there. Peeking at the bodies.
Christ.
And nothing stopped until the National Guard was called.
I wouldn't want to do that. I would not want to see dead people, let alone dead
I can't even watch it on TV.
No.
That movie, have you seen that documentary called There's Something About Aunt Diane?
No, I won't watch that one. Is that that's the one where she is driving the car and she has like a stroke or something. Mm-mm.
So a lot of different theories about what happened to her. But yeah, they actually show her dead body. Like the cops are there and they're looking around the car and all of a sudden they show her laying on the ground. And I'm like, what? Oh my God, you didn't tell me.
Well, they do that in a lot of mafia documentaries too. I've noticed they'll show like the people who are like killed, they'll show them and it's
but sometimes their like face anyway is covered up. She was like it was all out there and it traumatized me for a little bit. I was not expecting to see that. Anyway, so, and this is another gross part. Skip forward 5 seconds if you don't want to hear this. But while the people were rummaging around in the house, some people, at least one person, took a piece of Josiah's skull. Yep.
No wonder this house is haunted.
I know.
They were so disrespected.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Not only did they have to be brutally murdered, but their death turned into a farce.
Yep.
They should haunt everybody that was involved in that. That's terrible.
Yeah, and without getting too graphic, oops, too late. Everything I heard that said that Josiah got the worst of it. He was the one who had the blade and I think that makes more sense for what my theory is.
Oh, okay.
Of who did it.
Because it makes sense for Sarah getting it because one of the suspects, I think it was F.F. Jones, was rumored. It was either F.F. Jones or William Mason. I can't remember which one. Was rumored to be having an affair with Sarah.
Oh, okay.
So if she's the one that got the axe, it would make sense because maybe she had cut it off and whoever did this was pissed at her. So
okay. I don't remember that theory, but we'll get back to theories. But you go ahead. Continue.
So then we're still talking to Sheriff Sampson. I wonder if his wife's name is Delilah. Don't cut his hair. So then we've got the 4 suspects. Like I said, we've got George Kelly, F.F. Jones, and they talked about history, who these people were, and I didn't write it down. I'm super sorry.
No, I can tell you all about that.
Perfect.
I don't know if it's going to be the same thing that was in the show.
I don't know. The only one I remember was Henry Lee Moore. And the reason I remember Henry Lee Moore is because he had also committed a murder. He had killed his mother. How? How did he kill her, you might ask? Well, he killed her with an axe.
Yep.
So yeah, the reason they arrested George Kelly, and he's actually the one who was charged for the murders, was someone had said they had overheard George Kelly the next morning at 5:30 on a train talking about the murders, which wouldn't be abnormal, except the bodies hadn't been discovered yet. They weren't discovered until like 7 or 7:30.
Yep.
So how would he have known unless he didn't? So he was arrested and charged, had 2 trials, but was acquitted both times. And I get into that in a little bit, but
okay.
What else do you have?
So I have that. Okay. So the four people that they talked about in the show were Reverend Kelly, F.F. Jones, William Mansfield, and Henry Lee Moore. So I'll start with Henry Lee Moore. He was the serial killer. He was cleared because he was believed to be in another state at that time. And also, he really had no skin in the game. He did not even know the Moores.
Which, to be fair, a lot of serial killers don't know the victims.
Sure.
But the way that they were left indicates whoever knew them or did this, do them. Covering their face, covering the mirrors, that's a big thing, too. There's so much psychology.
I know. And in one
murder.
One of the podcasts that I listened to, My Favorite Murder, said that there was an old-timey telephone. Of course, it was an old-timey telephone. It was old-timey. But then
it was a normal telephone for the day.
It was a telephone on the wall. And you know those old-timey telephones? They have like the 2 big bells on the top and then like the thing on the side that looks like a dog ear or something.
And you have to then wind it.
So it kind of looks like a face, and that was covered too.
Really?
Yeah. So they thought like the killer was covering anything that looked like a face, even
that
if it was
watching him.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Psychologists must have a field day with this case.
I know. I have a background in psychology, so it's all fucking fascinating to me.
I don't, but it's still fascinating.
It's fascinating. So there was a bunch of people who were suspects. Most of them were like, one of them was just a hobo who had come through town, and there really was no reason for him to murder these people. Except that he was a
hobo, and of course they're all bad.
Right. And then there was the brother-in-law of Josiah. There was another guy who was an axe murderer. He killed a bunch of other people. It was a serial killer axe murderer. And
it wasn't Henry Lee Moore?
It wasn't. His name was Paul Mueller.
Oh.
And there's a book called The Man from the Train written about him. And it's written by a man and his daughter. And they believe that he's the murderer. And they tie the whole thing together, apparently. I only read an article about the book. I haven't read the book.
Yeah.
So,
given what Amy said, I do not agree with that.
Yeah. So, George Kelly, he was mentally ill.
Really?
He was a peeping Tom. He
gross.
became obsessed with this case, and he talked about it a lot. He sent letters to the police and to the Moore's remaining family about it. And then
interjecting yourself into the case.
Exactly. And then in 1914, he was sent to a mental hospital after getting caught sending obscene photos and letters to a woman who was trying to apply to be his secretary. He put an ad in the paper that he wanted a secretary, and this person replied, and he was like, sure, send me some nudes. So, yeah. So he ended up going to a mental hospital.
Sounds like he's not a mental person. Sounds like he's just a fucking creep.
He's a fucking creeper, for sure. So apparently he wouldn't stop talking about the Axe murders. And in 1917, he was questioned again, and this is when he was charged.
Oh, they didn't. Okay.
So it wasn't right away.
I mean, they don't, granted, they don't have a lot of time.
Right. So he did sign a confession.
Yep. They talk about that.
Yep. But one of the movies I watched a movie on YouTube today that was a documentary sort of about it. And it was kind of shitty quality, but it had a lot of good information. And she's the woman who was doing the documentary. She spoke to a historian at I can't remember where he was. He might have been at the museum, but he said that George Kelly enjoyed being in the mental institution because he felt safe. He was taken care of. And when they let him go, he didn't really know what to do with himself. And so he said he would have confessed to anything to go back.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know what? Maybe, I wonder if he was maybe on the spectrum, having that order, you know.
Yeah, could have been.
Like that order, that routine.
Yeah.
I don't know. I literally know nothing. It's just shooting.
Yeah.
Shit in the dark.
That's right. That's right. All right. So as you said, the jury did not buy the confession and his first trial ended in a hung jury. There was a second. He was acquitted.
Oh, can I interject a couple of things here? So we talked to crime historian Roy Marshall, and he talked a little bit about the first trial.
He might have been the guy in the movie that I watched today. He might have been the same guy.
Maybe. Yeah. So Steve asked him, like, what evidence did the prosecution have? They had a lot. So they had the confession, which, you know, take it or leave it. We all know how, you know, confessions aren't always 100%.
Right.
He also said he heard the voice of God tell him to slay this family. But the biggest and to me, the most damning piece of evidence was a bloody shirt. And they said a couple of days after the murders, he had taken a bloody shirt to get cleaned. But so that was a pretty strong piece of evidence. But the reason he was acquitted, essentially, according to the show, is he's a minister. They're in the Bible Belt. And ministers, they don't go around killing kids with an axe.
No.
And the second trial, they said, was basically a rerun of the first, but half-heartedly. The prosecution didn't even use the confession in the second trial. So he was going to get acquitted no matter what. Because the first one ended in a hung jury. So that's all I've got on that.
Okay. So should I talk about the other two suspects that I think are important? Okay. So
definitely.
Okay. So the next one was in the show. He was called F.F. Jones.
Yes.
So this is Frank F. Jones.
He worked for Josiah.
Josiah worked for him.
Oh, Josiah worked for him.
Yeah. So he was an Iowa State senator, and he ran a hardware /farm implement store. Josiah worked for him for a time. They had a disagreement. Josiah quit, left, and started his own store right across the street. And
that is such a fuck you.
I know, right? I mean, it's a small town, so there probably aren't a lot of streets, but still.
Could have gone up the road a little bit.
And Josiah took with him their biggest customer, which was John Deere.
The John Deere?
The John Deere, which I don't think is a person, but, you know, it's the tractor people. Yeah.
The green tractor company.
Right. So Jones was very angry with him for doing this. And it was also rumored that Josiah had an affair with Frank's daughter-in-law. But
they did talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's unconfirmed. So who knows if it's true.
Right.
So it is believed that Frank and his brother Arthur hired William Mansfield.
Okay. To do the murder.
Who was mentioned in the show. So William Mansfield, he was eventually cleared because payroll records showed that he was in Illinois at the time of the crime. However, it's believed that because Frank Jones was so powerful that those payroll records might have been fudged.
Right.
And especially because someone else came forward and said they saw Mansfield at the train station that morning, the morning of the bodies were discovered.
That's really interesting because Amy, during her walk, and I think at the reveal, even she said that it was a mistake and not everybody was supposed to die. So that kind of lends credence to that theory a little bit.
And then 2 years later, as you mentioned before, Mansfield's own family was killed, Ax murdered, and they do believe he did it.
I thought that was Henry.
I think that he also killed another family, but I don't think it was his family.
Oh.
Mansfield killed his wife, child, mother, and father-in-law.
Well, damn.
And he killed them with an axe. And the evidence was very similar, like all the windows in the doors covered. So,
psychologists listening to this, please let us know your thoughts.
Well, I think that I did hear or read or watch, whatever. I can't keep track of what all I did, but that it was a thing back in the day to cover mirrors when somebody died.
Yeah.
It had something to do with letting their spirit go.
Letting their soul. Yeah, because they didn't want their spirit to like see something and stick around or something like that.
So, yeah.
We're historians here, so.
Yeah. So that's why we say things like something like that.
Something like that, or, whatever. I don't know.
Whatever. Okay, so the town of Villisca was basically divided between these two theories. One was that the murderer was Reverend George Kelly, because he's a madman, he's a loose cannon, whatever. The other was that it was Frank Jones, who had a history with Josiah, was upset with him. And as things do, this became political because of who the players were.
Yeah, well, if you're a senator, it's going to get political.
Right. And because he was up for re-election.
Right. Ooh, never good.
Yep. So
you don't want to kill people in the years that you're having a re-election.
No.
You got to do those on the off year.
Right.
You're kidding. Please don't kill anybody.
Please don't kill anybody. So it was like it divided the entire town.
Wow.
And like people were leaving their church, going to a different church. If there's people that they didn't agree with, went to that church, they go to a different church. It actually sounds a lot like what we're going through right now with the political arena kind of dividing everybody.
Yeah.
It was a lot like that. But this is a small town, so it's even harder because families are breaking up and all because they can't agree on who killed these family. So actually the part I'm at right now, I already mentioned Amy, so I'll give my theory later.
Okay.
You go ahead.
Okay. So now we're at Amy's walk. And so she arrives and she said when she opened herself up, she met a woman. She said she's very disfigured and she's pissed about everything. She kind of goes back and forth between feeling responsible for it happening because she either let someone in or she let somebody stay. But then Amy also hears from her that it's her husband's fault. And then Amy just doesn't feel right and she kind of whispers it. She does a lot of creepy shit in this episode.
She does all the time.
Yeah, but this one, like, it was ramped up. So she starts her walk and she hears somebody say there wasn't anywhere to run. Looks like she's in a parlor with the piano. So I think that's the room she's in. She said she feels pain in her side and she can't breathe. She felt a lot of pain in this house. Like a lot of.
Imagine.
Yeah. Oh, God, bless her heart. So she's in the guest bedroom where Ina and Lena were killed, and she said she sees 2 girls in here, 8 or 9, and she said one of them likes to scare people. Amy said, sometimes I like to go rawr, like that, like really childlike. And she said living people would hear her, and she said she had a lot of pain in her left back, kind of by her kidneys. So then we go over to John's house, and she said a lot of the dead people from the Axe Murder House are coming here because they feel happy. They're able to be together. They just feel safe. She said in a bedroom, she sees the older woman from outside is trying to talk to somebody in there, and she's going crazy. She said she gets filled with rage, and her anger is directed at one man. And the woman, she said, is really creepy. She does really creepy shit. She said someone has probably seen an apparition of her many times. And she says she doesn't look normal when they see her. She looks messed up. And then Amy kind of hangs her head to the
I remember when she did. She's like, kind of like, huh?
I know, she's so creepy. She said Amy's pretty sure that this woman is haunting this family. And she tells Amy they deserve to suffer. And she said, this is what they get. And so she said, Amy said that this woman is furious with the living here. And she wants them to experience the same pain that she feels all the time. So nobody in this family is at rest, and they have not been at rest since they were killed. It's just so sad. So now we're back into the Axe Murder House. She said there's a male in the bedroom. She said he's inviting her in, but kind of in a mean way, like, come on in, like just not good. She said it makes her sick. This whole house makes her sick. She said there's a lot of movement, a lot of commotion, a lot of fear, a lot of panic, a lot of pain in this house. And then Amy whispers, there's a lot of people in this house. But she said all of the people are trapped. So then we go outside. Amy sees a man standing in the bushes watching her. She said he's angry and he's jealous. And she heard somebody say that he was very religious in life. Who do we know in this case that was religious?
We know somebody who was religious involved in this case.
She said she sees somebody being dragged across the floor. I just want to give her a hug for the stuff that she's seen. I can't. She said she heard a male voice saying it's going to be okay. The kid who was being dragged across the floor was a girl, and they knew who did it, and they knew them very well. And she said they're struggling. She said physical stuff is happening, and like the whole people struggled during this whole thing. Mm-hmm. And then she heard somebody say to make sure that they're dead. Mm-hmm. So then we go upstairs to the guest bedroom, and she sees a woman going, how can you let them do this? Aren't they your friends? She hears this woman saying that. She's hysterically crying and cowering in the corner. So Amy thinks there was a deal that went wrong. She said there were 4 men involved. She heard a conspiracy shit like it was a cover-up. She said the men had marks and scratches because these people had fought. I mean, they had fought for their lives. She said she heard men talking to each other to make sure that it's done. And she said not everybody was supposed to die. So one of the men, and this is the one that she sketches, who turns out to be George, she said he was really cruel and he really was into torturing them, and he liked to torture them. She said he was a little guy. She said he was thin and pale. She said his face was weird, and she said he was a crazy dude. Mm-hmm. So then we go to the sketch. So that's the end of Amy's walk, but it was rough. Like, she saw a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, she was basically seeing the murders happening.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
So now we're into the reveal, and John and Christy are there. Christy was the other tour guide. And Amy starts out by saying that this walk was overwhelming, which, yeah, I know I say this all the time, but she goes through so much to give these people peace. Like, to give these spirits peace and to get their message across. It's just amazing. Mm-hmm. She said everybody is still there. Everybody who was murdered is still in that house.
Interesting.
Yeah. She said she felt a lot of pain when she showed up. She said she had a hard time breathing and she had severe back pain. And then John went ahead and talked about his back pain and his nausea. And that's when Christy chimed in and said she has trouble breathing. She said it feels like someone is standing on your chest. So then Amy talks about the woman she met who's angry and spiteful and just pissed. So she goes back and forth about blame, from feeling responsible to blaming her husband. She said she's one of the murder victims. And Steve said, well, the only one who's a woman was Sarah Moore. All the rest were kids or Joe. And so Steve shows her a photo and asks if that who she's seen. And she said, oh, yes. So that's what Steve again says, that Sarah Moore was the only one who was hit with the sharp end of the axe and everyone else was hit with the back end. And Amy says, oh, interesting, which that is interesting, Amy. She said in the downstairs bedroom has the two girls, so Ina and Lena. And she said one of them enjoys interacting with the living. She said she likes to try to get attention. She tries talking to people and likes to growl. And so John then talks about how he hears the growl, gasp, moan combination. And Steve shows her a picture of the two girls, and she thinks it's Lena interacting with them, trying to get everyone's attention. She also said she heard a man say it's going to be okay, and then she heard another person say there's no place to run. So here's where she talks about she saw Ina being dragged across the floor by her leg, and she said she had a confused look on her face because she knew the man. So, oh my God, to be that little girl and know this person and not understanding why this person is doing this to you.
Somebody that you know.
It breaks my heart because she doesn't have the mental capacity to understand that there's evil in this world, and she's experiencing it, and it just makes me want to cry.
Yeah.
Because that's the last minutes of her life.
Yeah.
Were filled with betrayal.
Yeah. And the evidence backs that up too, saying that she was definitely awake when she was attacked. They think other people were asleep, but she was awake and that she fought.
Good for her.
Yep.
Good for her. I'm going to cry. Okay, we're moving on. Again, Amy said that she heard a male say, make sure they're all dead. This is...
Take a minute.
Sorry.
It's okay. Take a minute.
To be trapped like this. Like this woman upstairs, she saw Sarah holding a small child and screaming, how can you let them do this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To be trapped in that moment for your whole eternity. Just living it over and over again. I mean, it's bad enough for it to happen the time it happened, and then to have to... Just to not have peace.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. It's okay.
It's just awful.
It is.
So Sarah was saying, aren't they your friends? How can you let them do this? And that's when Amy said, a man said that not everybody was supposed to die. She said there was 4 men involved, and Steve goes into the 4 suspects. And then she said, Amy says she met one of them in the barn, that he was short and thin and pale. And then she goes, I happen to have a sketch done of him. And it is 100% George.
Yep.
There's no doubt that it's George Kelly.
Yeah.
So one thing that Kirsty pointed out that I thought was interesting is that, Amy said she thinks it's Kelly, but he wasn't the only one. He was just one of them. And then Kirsty said, that's what I think. She said, because how can one person control 8 people?
Yep.
I can understand both sides of it, because on the one hand, yes, there's 8 people. And if there's one person, but on the other hand, only 2 of them are adults. 6 of them are kids, young kids. So the adults would do anything to save those kids. Mm-hmm. So I can see both sides of it.
Yeah.
So then we go over to John's house, and she said most of the dead go there and they hang out because it's nice. They feel safe. They feel calm. She said she walked upstairs. You know, it's nice downstairs, but then you walk upstairs, and she said the second you hit the floor, there's complete anger from Sarah, just rage. She said, if I were you, I'd be very careful in this house. It's pretty intense.
Mm-hmm.
So John says downstairs is very peaceful and welcoming, but upstairs, she said it's very active. And Amy said she directs her anger towards a male. And John said, you know, he felt like he was called to this house to figure out who did it. And he, you know, he thinks it's fate that he's here, blah, blah, blah. So, you know, at the end of the day, we get that. Can they live here? And so Amy says the spirits from the day this happened, they've never had any peace. From 1912, they've never had peace. For a century, they've been living this over and over again. And they said not only are they reliving what happened to them constantly, but now they're seeing people coming in, and it's basically made to be a sideshow. This brutal crime is just, it's turned into like a farce almost. Mm-hmm. And you know, John does say, like, this is horrible. We don't want to disrespect them. You know, we want to make sure we honor them. So I will give him points for that. And John does agree, like, you know what? I'm just going to focus on the history of the tours and not the paranormal. And so at the end, it does say John has stopped giving paranormal information and just the history of the house. And Amy is doing her voiceover, and she said the dead want their story told, mm-hmm. but they want it told in a respectful manner.
Yeah.
And so the activity at his house has completely stopped.
Oh.
So good. It's so heartbreaking to me that I can't imagine losing all of your children and then reliving it over and over and mm-hmm. over again. It's just, and to not have had any justice, to not.
Yeah, still a cold case.
Yes. We're 110 years later.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, there's no solving it, because what are you going to do? How can you solve it? You can have theories, but.
Yeah, it's not gonna be solved any more than John Bonet will be solved.
Yeah. Anyways, sorry about that. Your turn.
No, it's okay.
Hi, friends. Amy here. Wow, this episode was a doozy. We did end up talking for almost another hour about the things that I discovered in my week's research, but we decided to split it into 2 episodes. Firstly, this week, and spending a lot of time on this horrific case, we wanted to take a little mental health break. We will still record this week. It will just be gabbing a little bit and then doing an intro for the second half of the story, which I will release next week. Also, we wanted to give you a break from listening to us for almost 2 hours straight. So if you choose, you can wait and listen to the episodes back to back next week. Also, I did edit this one into video, so if you want to watch the whole thing straight through, you can watch the video version, although it will not contain the stuff that we will be recording this coming weekend, unless I decide to attach it at the end once we've recorded and edited it. Check our socials and our website for that video, which I will release soon. So, thank you for listening, take care of yourselves, and we'll see you next week. The Activity Continues podcast is produced by me, Amy, at Collected Sounds Media, and is a part of the independent Collected Sounds podcast network.
Nailed it.